I don't know about you guys, but I think a lot about the game Replaced. It's one of those games that seems to haunt the collective gamer imagination. It's a dark, grimy, visually compelling action platformer in which we explore the gritty cyberpunk cosmopolis of Phoenix City, playing as a digital consciousness trapped in a modified human body. Ever since we first set eyes on this game, the environments have been just astounding to look at, with flakes of digital snow swirling in the air and the cold neon glow bathing the street life in its seedy light. It seems to use a mixture of 3D art with voxel or pixel styling, and it has a hugely atmospheric look with a very distinctive, vibey personality. And it's been a long time in development, but given this visual style, it is no surprise that gamers have been baying to get their hands on it. It was first announced to the public at E3, remember that? Way back in 2021, and it had already been in development for 3 years at that point. It was penciled in for a 2022 release, but since then it's been sliding back and back in the calendar, becoming one of those semi-mystical white whales of gaming that lurk in the back of our minds like Mina the Hollower or Silksong. And because these games capture our imagination so fully, they are subject to a lot of speculation because they just look so good. So it was very exciting to hear the news that the game now has a firm release date. It's coming to Xbox Series and PC on March the 12th, 2026. And when the publisher Thunderful reached out to sponsor a video on this channel about the game's release date announcement, I of course jumped at the chance. That's the video that you are watching right now. And there's nothing better than being sponsored to make a video about a game that you're already keenly aware of and genuinely looking forward to. So there's a link in the description and on the screen now if you would like to wishlist Replaced ahead of time. And this also meant that I got access to the developers to ask them a few questions. What were the technical challenges that led to that extended development time? What has changed over the intervening years? And what can we expect from the game when it lands next year? They gave me some really interesting answers, so let's look into it. Why did Replaced take so long? And what can we expect when it lands on March the 12th, 2026? So I got some fascinating answers back from the developers about the making of Replaced. It was a game that was made in Unity, and early in development the team used a built-in rendering solution provided by that engine. But early in development they realized they needed something a bit more custom-made to get that look that they were after. The dev team said in reply to my questions, quote, "Our game relies heavily on a large amount of lights, shadows, particles, etc., and we really wanted to be in control of all of this," unquote. This meant creating a custom rendering pipeline. That was a huge effort that they finished earlier this year, and with that work complete, they've since moved on to optimization to make sure the game runs smoothly upon release. And the process of arriving at that art style was not a short one. The team iterated on various visual styles, putting together, quote, "dozens," unquote, of templates for how the game might look, most of which ended up on the cutting room floor, but they arrived finally at the style you're looking at now. And after that meant making the huge amount of visual assets and content that would go into the game. The good news is that the style is compelling, unique, and really captures the eye and the imagination, but that style would also involve an extremely handcrafted manual process to create the game's visuals. Rather than a traditional 3D art pipeline with skeletal animations hinging everything together, they had to hand paint every model frame by frame, so it was quite a painstaking task to achieve the look that they were going for. The developers say, quote, "We didn't have tools that would allow us to speed this up because of the game's chosen art style, so we also had to create a huge backlog of required assets for us to be able to craft those environments while reusing as little as possible and making it feel truly unique and non-repetitive. So having established a unique art style, created the underlying tech that would be required to make it happen, and started to fill the world with all of the objects, the light, the particles that make it so visually compelling, all of that had to be made to gel with the gameplay. And Replaced is not a traditional platformer. The world elements that you swing on, land on, and jump on had to work diegetically. They had to look like part of this game's world and to feel like part of the cityscape. And this meant that the level design involved as much careful handcrafting as the visuals themselves. The developers say, quote, "We aren't an arcade platformer, so our levels can't look like an arcade platformer. Every platforming element has to be grounded in the environment and to look believable." They go on to say that unlike games like Dying Light or Uncharted, we're stripped of the third dimension most of the time, so we had to create our levels around a core paradigm that everything has to look like a real space whilst also being as fun as possible to traverse within those constraints, end quote. So that process just took a lot of experimentation and learning, and the developer is very open about the work it took to achieve the feel, the look, and the gameplay that they had in their minds at the start of the process of making Replaced. And when that initial time frame started to look a bit tight, I think they made the right decision to give the game the extra time it needed to cook, to put in that extra tech, to make those extra assets, and to puzzle out how to make all of this stuff slot together into a game that looks right, feels right, and just is right. So I have high hopes for this game, and it's coming out on March the 12th, 2026. We will finally get to see the fruit of all that labor. I cannot wait to play the game. I think the trailers are just jaw-dropping, so I'll be there on day one to see Sad Cat's work come to life, and a huge thanks to the publisher Thunderful for sponsoring this video on Replaced. And just to round things out, I have a little bit of channel news this week. Gaming in the Wild hit 1 million plays this week, and that's a pretty big number that really made me think about the 5 years I've been running a gaming podcast and the last 2 years of making YouTube videos regularly. So I felt like I had to do something to celebrate. I reached out to a few developers I've interviewed over the years, and I'm happy to say that they gave me 50 game codes to give away to new or upgrading patrons. That means I have codes for some of the sci-fi masterpieces that help make this channel what it is, including 1000 Times Resist, the amazing Citizen Sleeper 1 and 2, In Other Waters, the first game by Gareth Damian Martin, Citizen Sleeper's creator, really underrated that one, and finally Ultros, the prismic psychedelic Metroidvania that blew my mind when it came out last year. So if you join the Patreon to support this channel at any tier, I will message you personally to see which code you want. They're mostly Steam codes, but I have a few PS5 codes for 1000 Times Resist in the EU or US regions. Link on the screen now if you want to help me celebrate those 1 million plays and join the Gaming in the Wild community. You will get access to our community Discord server for patrons only. It's a very cozy place to talk about games. And you will also get behind the scenes video making, content creation posts from me, and 20 bonus podcasts about travel, books, off-topic stuff. So if you've enjoyed this channel in 2025, then hop on into the Patreon, link on the screen now for that. And with that, thanks for watching, take care of yourselves and each other, look forward to Replaced in 2026, and I'll see you on the next one.